Good morning, Brooklyn. Good morning, Crown Heights. How are you? It is great to see so many of our fellow Brooklynites here today as we are here for this exciting announcement. But before we begin, I want to acknowledge some special guests that are with us today. Assemblyman Nick Perry, I didn't see him. Did he make it in yet? Okay. Senator Jesse Hamilton. Senator Martin DeLon. New York City Councilman Robert Cornegy. The members of our governor's administration, Rose Harvey, Commissioner of New York State Office of Parks. Commissioner. Richard Ball, Commissioner of New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets. Our very own Karim Kamara, Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Faith-Based Development and Services, and Venetia Lannon, Deputy Secretary for the Environment. Deborah Martin, Executive Director of the New York Restoration Project. And Mr. Demetrius Mills, he's Board President of the Brooklyn Queens Land Trust. And a special thank you to all of our community gardeners, urban farmers, and food advocates who are here with us today. This afternoon, we will first hear from Governor Andrew Cuomo, and then Demetrius Mills, the Board President of Brooklyn Queens Land Trust, and then we will close the program. For too long, our communities here in Brooklyn have been overlooked by our political leaders. While many of them have talked the talk, very few have ever walked the walk. They made piecemeal investments in our communities without ever demonstrating a commitment to lift our families out of poverty and to provide them with the quality and opportunity they deserve. We know that piecemeal approaches don't work. We need stronger, more comprehensive commitment from government if we are ever going to make a real difference in people's lives. And that is exactly what Governor Cuomo's Vital Brooklyn initiative is doing. The initiative represents the largest ever investment in Central Brooklyn. Yes. It recognizes that our communities cannot thrive without safe housing, jobs that pay a living wage, health care, and green space. Now, this morning, I have the opportunity to introduce the person who made it all happen. Our governor, the governor of the great state of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you. Thank you very much. What a beautiful spot, huh? What a beautiful morning. First, I want to thank Assemblymember Tremaine Wright and all my colleagues in the legislature. We worked on this together as a joint project. This is a model. It's different than anything we've done before. It was very hard to coordinate, and they did an amazing job. So Tremaine Wright and Jesse and Martin and Roxanne, thank you very much. Robert Cornegy, thank you very much. I want to thank Demetrius Mills for hosting us today. I hope you don't charge us rent on this gazebo. Yeah, I'm sure you are. And thank you for all the good work you've been doing. Deborah Martin, who also Executive Director of the New York Restoration Project, and Bette Midler, who were ahead of their time. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. And you're going to hear from Commissioner Rose Harvey. As you heard from Tremaine Wright, this is a multi-agency initiative. We've never done anything like this before. So I want to thank all the commissioners who thought outside the box and made it happen. Commissioner Ball, thank you very much. Commissioner Rose Harvey. Let's give them a round of applause. You know, this morning we are in New York State. We're in New York City. We're in Brooklyn, New York. But that doesn't say much, because we have wide disparities in the state, in the city, and even in Brooklyn. We have the richest communities in the world in New York, and we have the poorest. We have the best schools in the United States of America, and we have some of the worst schools in the United States of America. We have some of the highest employment rates and the most millionaires, and we have some of the highest unemployment rates. So we have to focus on the individual needs of the places that have been left behind. My father, God rest his soul, in 1984 did a speech at the Democratic Convention called The Tale of Two Cities, where his whole point was, yes, you have some parts of this country, some parts of this state, some parts of this city that are doing very well, but you have some parts that are the exact opposite end of the spectrum. And they've been ignored for too long, and the inequality between the two is repugnant to everything we believe. So let's stop denying the need, let's stop turning a blind eye, and let's do what we all say we believe in doing, which is providing opportunity for all and raising everyone up. That's why we're in Central Brooklyn. Why? Because when you look at the state, you look at the city, and you look at one of the areas that is doing worse than all the other areas, you look at Central Brooklyn. And this is not true for 1 year or 2 years. This has been going on for decades. Listen to some of these numbers. Unemployment rate, state of New York, 4.6%, 4.6. New York City, 4.5. What do you think Central Brooklyn is? 12. Families receiving SNAP, 15% in the state, 27% Central Brooklyn. Physical inactivity index, which is part of this, 53% in the state, 84% Central Brooklyn. Murders per 100 people, 100,000 people. Murders per 100,000 people, 3 in the state, 3 in the city, almost 9 in Central Brooklyn. That's why Central Brooklyn. Well, what do you do about it? I'll tell you what we don't do, which the Assemblywoman pointed out. You stop with these piecemeal little approaches that amount to nothing. You want to make a difference, then commit yourself to making a difference. And we know how to make a difference. We've been talking about it for years. I was HUD Secretary under Bill Clinton. We did millions of dollars in research. How do you turn around a distressed community? And the answer is always the same. No piecemeal approaches. You have to have a comprehensive approach. You have to have a holistic approach. You have to look at the community as a whole. People are one being. And if you don't address all the needs, you're not addressing any of the needs. You want to stop the school to prison pipeline? Then provide the assistance early on to prevent the problem in the first place. And understand that the schools in Central Brooklyn are dealing with more than just an education problem. They're trying to make up for issues that are in the home and in the community. So invest in those schools, provide the social services. Understand it's not enough just to tell young people, say no to drugs, say no to this. You have to have something to say yes to. And I'll get you the job training, and we'll provide the job placement. So there is an alternative. You have to have alternatives to the street corner. And you have to have safe places for young people to go at night. You have to have recreation centers open that they can go to, midnight basketball. What happened to it? Give young people alternatives. You want to stop people from turning to a life of crime? Show them the life of opportunity. And do it in a way that actually works. Well, that's a big undertaking. Yes, it is. And understand that we're talking about physical health as well as mental health as well as spiritual health, treating the entire person. Well, that's too big an initiative. I can't get my head around that. Well, you have to. Because if we don't do it, and we don't do it the right way, then we're going to continue the same loop. And you're going to see the same young people coming out of the same community, the same housing project, the same school, and winding up in the same prison cell. And that's where we are now. So we came up with an initiative called Vital Brooklyn that said we're going to take Central Brooklyn and we're going to do it right. Well, what does that mean, doing it right? It means providing real affordable housing, 3,000 units, because too many people are getting pushed out of housing because of gentrification, or they're being pushed to substandard housing. It means healthy food, so people are eating well and young people are eating well when their bodies are developing. It means community services, that when a problem is detected, you can get in early and you can help. It means taking these schools and turning them into what we call community schools with after-school services and evening services. It says approaching gun violence, not by just arresting people, but community-based anti-violence approaches that reach out to young people in communities when they feel the tension growing. It says introduce young people to Mother Nature and give them a different view of the world. And we're going to be having young people in school work on the Billion Oyster Project, growing oysters and putting oysters back in Jamaica Bay. Give them a broader perspective. Show them the environment and how it all works. A couple of weeks ago, we announced $600 million for a different healthcare system, which is a metaphor for the entire approach. It's not about big hospitals where you go when you are very sick for acute care. It's about preventing the sickness in the first place. And instead of having just large hospitals, we're going to have dozens of community-based wellness centers where we focus more on diet and activity and prevention rather than just treatment of acute illnesses. And it's an investment and it's a big transition. It's a totally different approach for healthcare. And this is a totally different approach for community development. Well, why hasn't it been done before? Two reasons. It's very hard because you have to get all these agencies to work together. Public agencies, private agencies, you have to get housing to work with recreation, to work with parks, to work with education. And they will tell you it's very expensive. We're doing 8,800 projects in Brooklyn. Just Central Brooklyn, 8,800 projects. How much does it cost? $1.4 billion. Oh, Governor, you must have lost your mind. $1.4 billion just for Central Brooklyn? That is a lot of money, especially in these economic times. I said, no, I haven't lost my mind. This is actually what sanity and reasonableness requires. I'm tired of paying hundreds of millions of dollars to treat the problem. I would much rather invest $1.4 billion to stop the young person from getting into trouble in the first place. The old commercial, you can pay me now, you can pay me later. I would rather invest before the problem, provide the education, provide the anti-violence, provide the job, provide a real school environment, than pay $50,000 a year for a prison cell for 20 years. Or to pay for emergency rooms, or to pay for more trauma centers, or to pay for more police, to pay for more death. Let's get smart finally. In the long term, it is an economic investment. It will save money in the long term. And it will also save lives, literally save lives. And one thing we've never counted in our equation is how many young people have we just given up? We don't educate them. We don't get them a good job. We don't make them part of a productive society. How much is the value of that lost contribution? And we've done it generation after generation after generation. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Central Brooklyn, I started in my 20s, building affordable housing, low-income housing, off Pennsylvania Avenue in East New York. In my 20s. I'm no longer in my 20s. Big 6-0. 40 years. We've been doing the same thing over and over and over. It's got to stop. We have to get smarter. We have to actually put our money where our mouth is. You believe in democracy? You really believe in progressive politics? You really believe in helping young people? Well, then understand everything you've been doing up until now has not been working. And come up with a different model, a different approach, a different paradigm, and have the courage to do it. And yes, part of that is community gardens. We're going to be investing in 22 community gardens. Why? Because that is part of it. Having green space, growing healthy food, bringing the community together, giving young people and people a place of peace. With all this density in New York City and all this energy, a place to relax, a place to make bonds within a community. Yes, that is part of it. As part of a healthy community to raise really healthy young people. And that's what we're going to do in Central Brooklyn. And we're going to change decades of failure and show this city and this state, when you do it right, you save lives, you save money. And that's what we're all about. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Commissioner Rose Harvey.
Thank you, Governor Cuomo. Thank you, Assemblymember Tremaine Wright. And thank you to all the legislators, all the stakeholders, all the partners, all the gardeners, all the food advocates. Because indeed, under the governor's leadership and the legislators' leadership, we're going to reverse decades of disinvestment into the vacant lots that were a symbol of disinvestment in the neighborhoods in central Brooklyn. And we're going to ensure that all communities have a park, a garden, a playground within a 10-minute walk. And these 22 gardens are all part of the solution. And we also understand that we're building on the backs of and the legacy and the work for decades that all of the gardeners, all of the neighborhoods invested in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, going on to keep developers, keep government from plowing down the gardens and turning them into parking lots, turning them into development. So you believed, you acted, we the state, we, the Assembly, we and all our partners are investing now on all the work that you've done. And I want to really thank Deborah Martin of the New York Restoration Project. Thank you for everything you've done. And Demetris, thank you, the Brooklyn Queens Land Trust. You're the host here of this fabulous garden that's been here for a very long time, and you will do much more. Thank you all. And I want to say that as it was only 18 years ago that of these gardens, of the 22 gardens that we're going to improve, there was a movement to plow them under and turn them into parking lots. And the New York Restoration Project, with the Trust for Public Land, with the help of the Brooklyn Queens Land Trust, they bought them. They bought them all against all odds, raised money, and they've conserved them, but now they need to improve them. And they need to make them the real community centers, as the governor says, the places of peace, and as also the governor always says, parks and gardens are food for your soul, and certainly gardens are food for your soul. So, Vital Brooklyn will invest $3.1 million. 14 gardens will get full water hookups. That's a really big deal. These gardens, they've been collecting in rainwater and then somehow spreading it over the garden. It is now wholesale irrigation. It will be healthier yields, healthier plants for all and everyone, and it will be finished by year end. And again, this is through the efforts of New York Restoration and the Brooklyn Queens Land Trust. 5 gardens will receive extensive upgrades, and 3 will have full and total transformations. You're going to see better composting. You're going to actually see some comfort stations, better known as bathrooms, solar power to light up at night for events, welcoming fencing to say, come in, we welcome you. You're going to see shade structures. You're going to see gazebos such as these. And remember that these gardens are also teaching laboratories for our youth. They are for environmental education, they're for social gatherings, they're for arts and crafts fairs, they're for families and children to plant together so their children understand where their food comes. So this is a huge investment of not only dollars, but in Governor Cuomo, in all of the Assembly, all of our partners saying gardens are for the future. And they're for the future of our children. And I always use this quote, an African chief, we conserve what we love what we understand, and we understand what we are taught. So our children will learn from all of these gardens. So thank you again to the Governor, Vital Brooklyn, New York Restoration Project, Brooklyn Queens Land Trust, and we will be investing, and your legacy will go on and on through our children who will understand the value of green space. Thank you.